Hello, soul family. I am Shannon Pardini, and I am here with Shems Heartwell. I am Quantum Heart Conversations, and today we're going to do a sweet deep dive around relationships, soul leadership, the divine masculine, the healing, the integration, all this beautiful, just energetic flow that Shems is supporting, holding space for, loving, mentoring. And so before I let you dive in, I'm just going to read your brief bio here. Shems Heartwell has been honing and sharing his craft for 20 years. He has mentored with some of the most influential teachers in the fields of coaching, healing, relationship, and transformation. Shems is a licensed acupuncturist, certified coach, relationship guide, and Qigong teacher. He blends his experience and knowledge in a unique way of coaching and mentoring that is the leading edge of the human potential movement. Shems is passionate athlete, gardener, and musician, living with his beloved wife, say her name again for me.
Chintia.
Who is a beautiful soul on the beautiful island of Maui. So welcome. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you, Shannon. Wonderful to have this time with you to drop in, and all of you listening as well. Thank you.
We honor that. And I'm going to have you tell my audience in your own words, who are you showing up as today? And we'll just kind of start there and move forward.
That's a good question.
Right?
I'm showing up again and again, I feel, with authenticity, with care, with dedication and commitment to being a part of the solution where I can be on this crazy dance we're all in, and doing my best to really live from the heart, which I know your podcast is centered on too, versus this crazy mind that can generate all kinds of stories about reality that most of them are not true. And I'm meeting that, and I get to do that in the sense of working with couples and working with men, but also getting to have a farm and grow food and do my best to really live connected to the earth, to what we call the Aina in Hawaii, and to live a balanced life and make the most of all the good fortune and blessings I have to be here. I have a great relationship. I have so many good friendships. I get to live kind of in, I feel like, the 99th percentile of the planet to live in Hawaii at these times. So, and I got a little buddy who's barking because someone's delivering some fresh veggies to us right now. Koa, it's okay, buddy.
I love it. Oh, I mean, that vibe, the aloha vibe, I know the island so well, and just feeling your energy, it's pulsating through me. That's just incredible. And like I said, I just honor you. I got a glimpse of you through Instagram and just kind of followed you through the years of what you're doing. And I applaud you. And I was talking to you that, I like to interview people who are really stepping into their power of soul leadership. And I know you have a lot of different areas that you tap into with relationships, but why don't we start with the men's retreat that you've currently been honoring, supporting, mentoring in?
Great, for sure. What's wonderful about men's work is it took me a long time to be open to considering myself maybe a guide or a leader in it. And in my younger years, I didn't have a very healthy relationship with my father. My father's parents were killed in Germany when he was 1, and he carries a lot of trauma. So obviously, I picked up that trauma through my childhood, my mom leaving in the night when I was 6. And so, my late teens, early 20s were a lot about healing, and particularly with the masculine, because I didn't feel like I had a healthy father guide. Instead, I had someone who would freak out and get frustrated and scream and be aggressive and shut down and all the things he did. And I learned all that, like most of us men do, from our fathers. And so I was very fortunate to get into a lot of early men's work for my own healing, in the sense of whether that's Mankind Project, or I went up to Canada and did this really incredible rite of passage work with some men from Canada and New Zealand. And all of that really helped me understand that there was another way to operate as a man in the world. And to be totally honest, there was places in me that preferred to be around women than men, especially in my younger years. And so fast forward that through my process of healing and going to medical school and kind of doing the acupuncture naturopathic thing, as I was in relationships, I would keep meeting the challenges in myself of like shutting down when things got tough. If my partner was upset with me, I'd have all these mechanism in my system where I would shut down and withdraw or be angry and aggressive, whether that's with myself or outwardly. And so I just kept pursuing, like, what is this? What keeps getting in the way of me being relaxed, at ease, confident, able to confront men in healthy ways and challenging moments? And little by little, as I simply got stronger, healthier, had really good relationships with men, had really good mentors and teachers and guides, at a certain point, I started having like women in my life ask me to lead men's work. And I was like, no way. I'm like, not that kind of guy. I had all these ideas of the kind of men that lead men's work. They're like powerful. They're very masculine. I was a little bit femininized in some ways in myself, just more comfortable and safe in that. And it's been a slow journey to reclaim and connect with more of like authentic power. And potency is another good word I really like, is healthy masculine energy has a potency, like it has impact, whether that's a small body or a big body. There's a certain quality of presence and energy. And as that's matured in me, I would work with couples doing relational work. And I kept having the wife pull me aside, would you work with my man? I'm kind of whispering here, but, and I was like, okay, and then I'd start do some private sessions with men. And then I just started having some guidance of, I need to offer some kind of men's retreat program experience, because the ones I'm going to still lead a little bit with warrior energy, confrontation, calling out, challenging, which I think is really healthy. And I have a little bit of a different direction. And this is where some of what I've done is different than a lot of men's work. Is my sense is that we've got to lead with inclusivity and acceptance and witnessing and seeing each man like who he is and where he's at, instead of confrontation. And the more a man feels like seen, accepted, welcome, safe, then we can call him into deeper senses of challenge, of confrontation, where there may be a lack of integrity, where there may be some blocks in his capacity. But I've been leading with the men's work of going, how do we create these spaces where men really feel like, wow, like these men care about me. These men accepting all aspects of me, whether I'm gay or straight, whether I'm small or big, whether I'm whatever nationality and where I come from. There's this sense of like, let's welcome these brothers in the circle and let's play with all the judgments and stories in the way and make that kind of fun and exploratory. And then let's take it deeper. And so that's how it's really worked well for me. And that's attracted a certain quality of men. Not all men are drawn to that, but the men who are just like, wow, I love being in an environment where like the first quality is like a hand calling me in and pulling me in and welcoming me in. And then there's these layers of going deeper and starting to have the opportunity to like kind of chisel away at the layers, at the blocks, at the misbeliefs about reality that a lot of men have because of our upbringing and because of our enculturation and because of the generations of history that we come from as men in the world. So I get to do that.
That's
and
beautiful.
It's super exciting. It's super fun. And beautifully so, it creates a lot of really great relationships with super wonderful men.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Lifetime. Yeah, that is just to be in a tribe and to heal and to feel safe in that way. I work one-on-one with clients and I have a few men, and creating that safety is so brilliant, and showing one that they're being seen is a whole nother experience. It's so scary for all of us to be seen, to be witnessed in that way. And so to have a tribe that's there who are expressive of what's going on with their programs and moving through the energetics of that together, it's got to be so incredibly powerful to witness. So I just honor that. I love it. And you recently were in Mexico doing a retreat, correct?
I was actually working privately with a couple that flew me down to Mexico to do a deep dive with them. Before I went to Mexico, I did a brief thing in San Francisco where you are with some men.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about the San Francisco?
Yeah, I've got some men I've been working with some years who now more co-facilitate with me, which is one of the other things I really like setting up, is that the more I've done the men's work, more I feel like I'm pulling men into their leadership instead of me staying as kind of the leader. Like I'm really inviting and pulling and welcoming men to really stand with me alongside me. So there's no like who's higher, who's more evolved, so I've got men that I'm co-creating with, and a few of them in San Francisco. And so 4 of us came together to create this wonderful, evening around the fire outside at this firehouse. And we called in men from a lot of different walks of life. I think we had about 20 men there. So it was a smaller, more intimate gathering, which is just the right number. And it was incredible just to drop in. And we always start by walking in a circle as men and rocking around and looking at each other and seeing each other and watching our own posture and feeling and starting with experience versus going right in a circle immediately. We actually use an experience of movement, walking, and then change directions and checking each other out without words, like seeing each man and making some contact and noticing what arises. So we have this whole experience we walk through at the beginning of a gathering that really helps to establish a sense of familiarity with the other men versus, and what it does is it breaks down a lot of the unconscious posturing that many of us do when we enter a group environment. We've got like these personas or these particular survival mechanisms that we kind of put on, almost like a mask. We call it like a mask that we put on, and we position ourselves that way. And we're like, I'll let some people in this much. I'll show this about myself. And this kind of melts that a little bit and immediately creates a sense of like, oh, I feel connected to these men. Even if we haven't spoken a word, I've made some eye contact with them. I've stopped in front of a couple men and I've taken some breaths with them. I've gotten curious about them. And so it starts creating an experience for depth immediately. And so we start with that. Then we move into deeper layers of what we do. And at this gathering, I had this wonderful brother, Ashanti Branch, who lives in Oakland, who does work with youth, mostly inner city youth in the schools, working with taking off the mask. He has like a million mask movement, shadow work, saying like, what do I show to the world? What do I show, what don't I let anybody see about me? And he walked the group through a process of that too, which was so rich and beautiful.
Wow, I'm getting chills just hearing that. How powerful. And just, even just making that eye contact, in the initial stages, it's just got to be such an interesting space to flow in, to see how we create all these personas to see what shows up in such a vulnerable situation like that and break it down. So I love the authenticity and the sacredness. Is there more you want to share on that experience?
Right along with what you're sharing here, what we do is we do our best to keep the words out for a while at first. And we literally, like one of the tools I use in men's work, and I use this relationally too, is that we've got many what I call bridges of contact or connection with others that we share. The one that most people use all the time is the mind, like, thoughts and idea and perceptions and what we can talk about. And then there's a heart point of contact, right? Just like a coherent field of heart resonance. And then there's a gut one that includes sexuality. And the one that we're most in touch with sexually is like men and women checking each other out and there's sexual energy flowing. But then there's this other level of almost like, I know things about you that, I could never try to understand just by sensing you with the quality of my hara or my center or my gut wisdom, the enteric nervous system, right? That gut wisdom, all of the nervous system that's in our gut informs us quicker than our brain. And we rely on that whether we know it or not. But most people bypass it with thought and story. So when we're doing our first exercises in a men's gathering, whether it's a retreat for a week or it's an evening event, we do a lot of this dropping people into, while you're walking around, like feel your heart and see if you can sense some of the other men's heart. Like know that every single man in the circle has suffered in some way. Every single man in the circle has had a loss. Every single person in the circle has people they love. Every people in the circle has people they want to protect and care about. So we start to break down some of the differences and distinctions that divide us of like, what do we all share? We all have red blood. We all have a heart. And then we drop down even deeper, like, what do you sense about some of these men you're walking around? What might you be curious about and even know about them without even talking to them? And you may or may not be accurate, but let yourself sense into that and get curious about, we'll let you check it out later. What you sensed, what you know. So we're really trying to turn on more faculties in the men. So we bypass this tendency to have this overactive mind that can tell a story about who you think you are and all that stuff that I think gets in the way a lot of the time from higher quality or more sincere connection. And so we're working towards that. And it's really wonderful because it works super well most of the time.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's incredible to have a reflection that way, but to feel, just more attuned to the frequency of what's going on in that environment and really just dropping down. So fun. Yeah, that's, again, it's when we're doing this healing work and really breaking into these spaces, for our audience, I'm glad that Shems is sharing, because this is, these areas are so sensitive within each and every one of us. And so these movements and what you're bringing forth just to step into that circle requires really surrendering, and knowing like, yeah, it's time. I'm ready to make a change, because being in an environment like that, there is no doubt that you're going to get changed profoundly
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
within hours.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And any more you want to add to the work you're doing with men? Because I know we can move into relationship too as well.
Yeah, we're working on something called the Navigator Project, where I've got more men are bringing in. For instance, on Sunday, the day I got back from my travels, some of the men who've been working with me for years, they organized an event without me, which is so awesome and exciting for me too. And they brought in, we're trying to bring in elders, like we brought in this Hawaiian elder, Kimokeo, and trying to bring in, men who may not be drawn to men's work because they're high level in their own realm, whether that's shamanism, stuff like that. So we're looking to create environments where we can call in elders and men to step into a men's circle, but immediately as a leader, as a guide, even though they're going to experience things too. And we're looking to try to close that gap of where there's a lot of teachers and high level people who, I don't know, have some aversion to what we call men's work. And for good reason too, because men's work can get locked in some pigeonholes of what it is or what it isn't. We're trying to do our best to bring in healthy elders, but then to create environments too where the younger generation coming in, whether they're in their late teens or early 20s, can have this environment where there's a diversity of age, there's a diversity of experience, and that comes down to like more natural village life in a certain way. There's many tiers or layers of people in their journey and experience, and the elders usually have more time and availability to drop in and hold space for the younger ones. But we've lost that in our culture, so we're passionate about looking for how do we bring that back into the circle, so that it's not just like a little tight demographic of 30 to 50 or something, that's like only certain
Right.
stages of life, but we actually have a demographic of people in their 70s and younger men in their 18 or their 22, and they're needing some modeling of healthy men who are willing to be radically honest, who are willing to put out their challenges and talk about where they've had triumphs, where they haven't, where they keep having the same struggle over and over again, which many of us do until we grow and learn enough about it to explore it, or we have it through our whole life and it won't go away, whether it's a disability or a limitation physically. And so for younger men to see that and see men making peace with that and being able to own that and have it not diminish their power, not diminish their ability to be a full-on incredible being and man, because we have a society too that does this with women and men, where it like highlights certain qualities of perfection and doesn't leave a lot of room for those who are struggling in some ways or have deficiencies or have some problems or challenges, or they're just old and they don't have their fire and their strength anymore, and yet they're not honored as an elder. And so we want to just keep creating environments where we're really highlighting those things of humanity that don't, but still having full spirit, still having full charisma, still having full power, and still having full respect, even if you've got a deficiency. And those are things that are important to the movement that we're doing.
Oh, I love the wholeness. Yeah, there's to have a group like that of all ages in attuning one's DNA expression all together in that, it shows them what's possible. The vitality that comes through within all ages is so empowering and powerful. So it's beautiful to hear that that's
Mm.
happening, because like you said, we did in society, some of these things have been kind of shunned out, and we are in such an upgraded time with Mother Earth and the planet that it is all about unity consciousness. And
Mm.
what a better way, to have our elders step in with us, because they're fun, it's such a connection. It's like another electricity bolt going through us.
Mm.
Well done.
Yeah, I want to tell just a quick story that
Yeah.
I've been participating also in Sacred Sons, which is a really great movement, like a kind of a fast growing men's movement that these men have put together. That's really great, especially because it's multicultural. But I've been a facilitator in that a few times. And at the first one I went to, there was an older gentleman that was in his like maybe 65 or 70 who had some really deep trauma, like family trauma, and like a lot of shame of who he's been as a father, but also the work of what he carries from his lineage and all the destructive patterns he's had in his life, like really toxic. And he's in a process of healing those. So we did this deep work with that, and he had some healing. And then the next time we came in, I was able to have him step in as a healthy elder for another younger man, who was going through things in a younger generation of his life. And it was so beautiful because he had so much resistance to stepping in as an elder, because there's been so much shame for him, so much like, I don't deserve to do this, I've messed up my life, versus like, can you own the ways that you've survived, the ways you've thrived, the ways you've endured what you've endured, and that you're still here and still able, and you're even willing to do the work right now at this age. And so he stepped in this, and it was more healing for him to step into the elder role and like have tears going down his eyes and have him in that place than even for the younger man who got a lot of gifts from it too. But that, for me, that was one of those momental moments of like, he needed to be honored as an elder, and he wouldn't give himself permission to ever do that unless we pulled him in and had him go through all the subtle resistance to actually being held in an elder role and really being a man that can hold a space and that deserve that dignity and that respect, but also to have something to bless and give. And many elders in our world, many men, don't have something to bless and give in their life, so they don't have a lot of purpose, don't have a lot of meaning, and then they keep checking out with all these things to distract themselves rather than actually feeling like they can give their gifts.
I love that. Yeah, it's so much comes up for me by you sharing this story. I think one, just what you're doing, the community, I see that you're welcoming, they're all becoming teachers at some point. You know, there's a space for them to create, you know, this whole new organization of, you know, the deep dive of raising or allowing the masculine to rise in this tribe, but also allowing others to teach what they've been through is so empowering, right? Like just putting them in that spot where they get to actually put the practice and show someone else right there is just like, it's so infused into who you are. And again, I like hearing what's happening. It's almost like these retreats, and what you are creating is certainly taking a life of its own and welcoming, you know, the masculine into its hierarchy. It's really time for the kings to know their kings.
Yeah, and right on that edge is this was one of my challenges. I resisted stepping into doing men's work for so long because I thought I had to be perfect. And our society sets it up, whether it's social media too, people project all these things about who they think they are, and then they're not showing their shadows. They're not showing where they're still struggling. And some people are getting better at that. But I feel like there's this weird social agreement that you've got to have arrived and be at some level of development before you can give your gifts. And I want to keep burning that, because like as much as I have a lot I've cultivated and grown into, I've got challenges, I've got issues, I've got layers of things that are still helping me learn to have more awareness, to be more sensitively aware of another, to like leave more space for, there's all kinds of things that I'm on my growth edge with all the time, you know. And I feel like I have a lot of distrust for a lot of leaders who kind of think they've gotten to a certain place and then they go and act out sexually, or they go act out with power struggle, because really they've been hiding their shadow and trying to stand on a stage in some level, rather than owning that they're a human. And they've got we could call it the yogi and the man in them. And it happens across the board. And until our world starts really being okay with having like some flaws or some humanity or something like that, like Trump's a good example, like so arrogant, so aggressive, so overconfident. And he has all kinds of shadow aspects that he's not willing to show or own. And if he did, maybe a way bigger percentage of our world would trust this person, right? But without that, we can't trust him. I mean, he's a good example, right, on an archetypical level.
Right. Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought this up, because I think that's what does cultivate trust in general. The more vulnerable, the more humble, because again, when we are doing this healing, it breaks you apart. You know, we turn into several different pieces and we reunite as whole. But when you do share in that authentic way, because going through ascension or whatever you want to call it, regardless, we're all moving through this time of, you know, shifting into our spirituality, meaning we're up leveling, we're raising our consciousness together. And it's not pretty by any means. You know, there's nothing pretty about it. The body changes, the body goes through its purging, there's the huge purification. You know, once you make it through, you know, an initiation, whatever it may be, through the ascension process of cleaning up programming, the body still needs to detox all the automatic behaviors. And so this stuff, you know, the shadow side really needs to be shared, because it helps us who are going through it solo, right? Because you kind of get initiated and thrown into it, where it's like, why is my body doing this? Why am I changing? You know, what are these emotions? Why am I looping in these programs? And so it's a big part of it in the shadow work, you know, it's funny that you hear so many people doing the shadow work these days, which is incredible, right? It is now becoming a collective like conversation. But the more that we really show up in our authenticity, it just allows one to really follow the path that feels right. And when you share in such an authentic way, your brothers and sisters show up, you know, people like Shems is right there supporting you, but the community is just, you know, words can't say what a beautiful environment it is to like really do your healing work and to join, you know, it just kind of finds you and sucks you in.
Yeah, well said.
Do you want to tap into relationships a little
Absolutely.
bit?
That's my number one passion, and that really preceded men's work. I think that is that my sense is that relationship is the front line of human evolution, and it's not just like love romantic relationships. It's every single one. You know, with my own self and inner critic and spiritual connection of higher self, and we call it that, with spirit or God, to the one I have with the planet, whether I'm plugged in and feeling and attuned to Mama Gaia, to the earth, to life. And in my sense, it's where humanity is the least developed in so many ways. Of course, there's been humanity that's been more evolved in this way in many cultures all around the world, but on a certain level, on the front line of Western civilization at the very least, in most places I've traveled, there's this disruption in relational skills and our ability to actually stay in healthy relationship in the midst of tension, in the midst of challenge. There's all these mechanisms of humanity that have learned to kind of shut down, to push away, to blame the other, to not really own, like, how am I co-creating this tango, this frustration? It looks like this person's doing this thing to me. What in me might be requiring that? What in me, where this is familiar to how my mom or dad treated me, and here I have it with my wife or husband. And why is that going on? And why am I putting the power in their hands rather than me going, what in me is dancing with this? And how can I adapt and change what's going on in me rather than trying to fix, change, alter the other, which is what a lot of people do. And so for me, this is the juiciest thing. And I'm so fortunate to work with clients in many countries around the world, from whether that's in Dubai or Japan or Europe or Lebanon. I've had clients in so many places. So I've gotten to see cycles of the same things playing out. There may be some aspects of more intense masculine dominance in certain cultures because of things too, but for the most part, the same stuff plays out over and over again relationally, because on some level, our operating system is stuck in like 1800s, you know, relationally, and we're here to evolve that. And so for me, this is, I call it empowered loving. It's like, it's empowering for me when I'm able to stay in love and stay in acceptance and stay in connection with another, even when so much of me wants to shut down, push away, make them wrong, make them start. But what if I stayed in love? And what if I got curious about what this is for both of us and how whatever's showing up is in service to us? So many people cut people out of their lives, push them away, assume they're just like, oh, that person's just a narcissist, so you shouldn't even talk to them. And I'm not a fan of that game. I do think healthy boundaries and not relating with people at times who are really toxic is wise. And there's something in that. If we're having people come into our life that are what someone might call a narcissist or imbalanced, I think there's an opportunity for each of us to evolve our capacity to relate with them still and find some place of mutual respect and mutual understanding and the ability to stay in the game or stay in the connection, rather than like, okay, well, there's so many people in the world, I'll just block off these people and I'll connect with these people over there. I see too much of that, especially in what we call the evolved culture, or like the spiritually evolved souls. I see so many folks who you know, feel they've reached a certain degree of development spiritually, emotionally, consciousness wise. I'm using these words, you know, and I see them still play out these things where they're in drama with other people and they're judging them for it. And they're really not taking ownership of what their growth edge is in the experience there. And for me, I have a huge fire and passion for that.
Beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's that reflection. I was having this conversation with someone who I work closely with, and you can learn a lot from a narcissist. You know, it's some of those people, those tendencies, that frequency, it really pushes us to our edge. But also it's looking at the reflection, like you're getting triggered by that person because there's a frequency deep inside us that is the
Mm,
same, whether it be shame or guilt. And it's like you said, it's like the, it's primal energy. It's so super primal to the malnourished, to, there's so many levels that it goes to. And yeah, this is the beautiful side of using everyone in our experience as a reflection at first. Don't get too caught up in it, but there's always something to learn. And, we don't have to ghost or shut people out. It's just
mhm.
be in your space, learn to hone your wholeness, and just to kind of, be a seer, just kind of attune to what's right there. So I like how you're utilizing this.
Thank you. And I also, there's so much of, if we understand the nervous system, which I know you and the folks who are probably with you in this realm, we all have gotten a good sense of regulating the nervous system, learning how to de-escalate, when it's in reactivity and something is shut down and we're in the sympathetic activation. And it's so healthy to be able to do that, right? To be able to take some deep breaths and take a walk and shift our energy or do yoga or breath work, whatever it is. And the next level of that is co-regulation. And to me, that's the sweet spot of where relationship starts to enter a new paradigm of possibility. When we use, most people, what happens is that what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain bodies, like the more dense, heavy, undigested emotional content in our system that may not even be personal to this person that we're carrying, generationally. When that gets activated by the other, we put all the attention on they're doing this thing, or it's them versus oh, something's going on in here. And I can do self-regulation, but I also need a co-regulation. And when we start to realize that in the moment, the bigger the pain body energy is, the more there's something ripe to actually have some form of rocket fuel happen, burning that up and having a deeper level of opening, healing, understanding, transmutation,
Right.
transformation. So I put a lot of attention on that in couples, particularly too, is, if things get intense and you're overwhelmed by your kids and life and all that, how can you leverage each other together in presence and that to actually burn through this stuff more swiftly, more easily, in an accelerated way, rather than I'm just overwhelmed. I got to just go and I got to take a week and go to Jamaica and leave and just go with them. That's great, and you can't keep doing that. You can't keep leaving. You can't keep going off and having drinks at the bar. You've got to learn how to do it right here and use your partner, use the energy, use your shared devotion and commitment and love as a catalytic energy to more effectively burn through and move through and open to deeper love, surrender to deeper opening, utilize that sense to burn up any of the old karmic, heavy, dense, whatever you want to call it, entanglements between us. And so for me, that's a big relational pattern.
Beautiful. Yeah. When I tap into that, it's just you're bringing in all the elementals. I just see the fluidity of the water and the fire coming
Yes.
in so
Yes.
clearly. And that's what's needed, us really embodying what nature shows. Yeah, that's gorgeous. And do you have any examples you want to kind of share? I know you tapped into a little bit of the experience, but something of profound change that just kind of blew your mind.
Gosh, yeah. Many times I've worked with a couple where one person has what we could simply call a heart block, where there was times in their life where they had a deep hurt around an early relationship, a parent, a trust with somebody. And that even though they're married and in a relationship, may have kids, there's only a certain level of heart they're really allowing themselves on an unconscious level to experience. And at a certain point, that gets in the way of another level of open relationship. And so that the other partner will feel I don't really feel you. I don't really feel you love me. I don't know if any other person's yeah, I'm not all the way in. I'm not sure I'm happy in this relationship. I'm not sure I really love you. And when I've gotten down to really peer into that, there's, this fantasy that there'll be some better partner that will be the better match. And I'm sure, that's a possibility. And most likely there's something in you around your heart that has a protection, that has something there that's preventing you from really opening to this partner. It happens both ways for men and women. I've had more experiences with men having it for various reasons, but it goes both ways commonly. And so I've had many experiences where I've guided a couple into doing some really deep work with breath work. Sometimes we've used medicines too as a catalytic. I'm not a big fan of using substances, although there are moments when that can move some energy with a lot of intentionality. So most of the time I'm looking for like, how can we create a space where this person in some ways has to stay present in their heart and has to open deeper to their partner. And I will create environments where I have, if I'm in person with them when I can be, I'll have the partner doing some postures of like holding them with a hand in their heart and legs over in a very intimate posture and having to stay in that until all the resistance comes up, until that person starts having like, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't love you. I don't feel safe. And all this layer upon layer, and just like letting them say it and breathe into it. And like, yep, I get that's here. What else is here? And like continuing to hold them to the heat of the fire so that all the stuff that's in the way bubbles up. And then usually there's some huge opening where like there's a crack of like deep pain and hurt that never got digested, that never got felt, that like is so older and sometimes it's not even unknown. It could be even pre-verbal in the first stages of being born, right? When the father didn't want the child or the mother didn't want the child or she was overwhelmed. And so it doesn't matter where it came from, but it starts to move. And so for me, I have a lot of passion for creating environments for that, where then that person starts to realize there's this rawness and openness and aliveness they've been missing out on. And then they open deeper to their partner and there starts to be a thing. And then here's the funny part of this. It's really interesting. When that person finally does open their heart and really show up, often the other partner has to go through a process of like being able to handle that or meet that someplace in their system also required their partner to not be all the way in, to not like really open them. And when they do, then they have to go through their own growth spurt of being able to receive that much love and attention to be able to like end the story of like he or she doesn't really love me and want me, to all of a sudden being met so fully that they have an upgrade or a process of shedding, opening, healing. And I've seen that many times, which is really profound when it happens too. And so that's the beautiful part, is it's never just one. Right. Whenever we're in a dance with somebody relationally and like one person's in a growth hurt, that person, when they have that growth healing, the other has to on some level go through some process where another wave of opening, a deeper level of, availability happens. Whatever it is, there's a layer there. And when that dance keeps exchanging and opening, it gets really rich. It becomes alchemy instead of chemistry, right?
Yeah, I mean, just witnessing that for the initial part when the first person just allows the eruption, right? The alchemy there, I couldn't even imagine what the other person is. I can witness that, but the heart, wow, the heart holds so much. The layers of armor some of us put on, and if you even think about it, it's like even our first heartbreak, whatever it may be, it was so traumatic and hurtful and you could feel the pangs. And so when we are holding the resonance of this for so long and then witnessing each other and, to have that ebb and flow between two, again, what an organic process to go through with your beloved and to feel that space. You know what, I kind of, when you said the funny part, I bet you see some really interesting experiences when they let it loose, because almost to the point where, are they laughing at a certain point? Because when you have so much of a combustion, the body is just finally like in this euphoric state. So just incredible.
I've seen laughter quite a bit. I've also seen laughter right on top of emotional energy. Like it's safer to feel laughter. And then just below the laughter is like a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Terrified, or some degree of anger and frustration that never got digested. But the laughter is kind of the first layer. And then there's the more deeper, authentic laughter when it's like, oh my gosh, we're freed up. Wow.
Right. We can learn to truly breathe. Like a lot of us don't know how to take a real natural breath. And when we're held in these spaces, again, going back to the body, it's just so incredible how it stores, but it's incredibly intelligent. And so as it moves through these processes, I'm sure the audience can feel everything we're talking about, but it goes through layers, whether it goes through convulsions or the crying or the purging or the laughter. It's like, it's all so essential and needed. And even just like sharing the experience and talking about it, I feel lighter. It's just such a cool, our body can do that. And each and every one of us have this natural ability to fully heal and be whole. And so again, I honor you for facilitating that, supporting a space, this is your life mission. And, I love the service and, helping the divine masculine and feminine rise together, whatever that even means these days, you know what I mean? But just bringing in unity consciousness, each and every one of us, there's so much support out there, if you truly want to find it. And so thank you for sharing the experience. Is there anything you kind of want to deep dive down? And also, let us know, tell the audience where they can find you.
Yeah. If I were to go deeper, I would say I'm so cautious nowadays with like divine masculine and divine feminine, and because I work with plenty of couples who are two men or two women too, and it's just it's a slippery, sensitive slope there too. What's unarguable is that we all have, healthy aspects of masculine and feminine in us, and there's this dance of how do I learn to have that balance in myself too, where the aspects of my feminine can really and love and accept like my flaws, my growth edges, the place where, because if we don't do that, the inner critic tends to rip us apart. As most of us know, we've got this voice that comes in almost like the Christian priest telling us we'll always be sinners and always be wrong and always be bad, and you have to keep repenting. The inner critic kind of feeds that energy on some level. Versus, the healthy masculine standing for authenticity, standing for truth, standing for righteousness, standing to be the sunlight to really shine on what's going on inside of us. And when that dance is going on inside of us, a healthy way where we have love and acceptance, then we can bring heat and fire to things. And I find that's the magic. And many people really want to like aggressively go after where their issue is or push themselves through a new growth level, which is very masculine, right? I'll just burn through this stuff and offload. And I keep learning that the more I lead with some degree of, like I said earlier in our call around men's work, like, can I lead with accepting that I'm never going to be perfect? Can I lead with accepting the fact that I may never be the musician I want to be, even though I've been working and training and all those things there. Once I accept it and I make some space for it, things are allowed to change. And I've seen that again and again inside myself. Like once I accept, like my heart's blocked, and I'm not able to really feel connected right now. Can I just accept that and not have to make it wrong or get rid of it or fix it or change it now, but just to make space that that's okay. And the more I have the acceptance, it's like the masculine sunlight comes in and can start shining on it. And what sunlight does is it either makes things grow or it dissolves them, transforms them, right? So it's always doing that inside of us. And I love to see like the feminine as the earth just that can let anything grow. And the masculine's going to be the sunlight that's either going to dry it out and burn it up, or it's going to like really feed it, And so that's just something I keep referring to even with a couple. It's like, well, often the feminine is running on too much masculine energy and is a little controlling, doesn't really feel safe. And so comes in and tells this person what to do, rather than going like, wow, I'm not really trusting you. And something in me doesn't feel safe in this relationship. And I don't really know if you're going to take care of feeding our kids. And like, I don't know how to be with that. So when I feel that way, I come in and tell you all the things you should do. And then he gets annoyed and frustrated and feels like he's always being watched, and see these dynamics pop that way. But if she works with relaxing and accepting, then he can feel different around that. And there's more space for him to show up more fully as a father, as that realm. And so that dance is always happening. And I feel like it's a deep one, because whether I'm in relationship or anyone on this call is in relationship or not, that relationship's always here. And we always have this opportunity to go like, is there ways that the masculine in me is like pushing and overriding and going and like just doing and always stimulated, and the feminine's not having room to really be fertile ground and really be in a place of acceptance and allowance and spaciousness and being with what's here in a more loving way. And the more that happens, the more our masculine can be effective,
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I think what comes to mind for me is, and even you said it, when we're in that space of acceptance, right? And we're also in a space of being accountable of our energies, no matter how we're flowing. I think once you step into that, it's easier to get the downloads of what to do next. And so it just provides this powerful balance. We can accept ourselves wherever we're at, but if you are dynamically authentic in your truth, the information's going to come through and it's going to show you. You don't have to work hard for it. It will download in and give you the next steps, the next words, the next whoever is going to show up on your pathway. So really beautiful. I love the way that you share.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, so if anyone wants to, know more about me, I could just go to my website, which is shemsheartwell.com, or at Shems Heart on Instagram. I haven't been on Facebook these days. I kind of backed off that, so I've been using Instagram some, but I just stepped off the Facebook world. Not
Like,
that not that Instagram's that much different, but it's a little
right,
better.
exactly. I know a lot of people, they gravitate to one or the other. It's funny how social media is such a big part of our lives, but whatever. It is what it is.
I'll tell
But
you what, it was so nice in Mexico. I took a week off of no phone, no computer, and just
ooh,
and no car, and just walking on the sand and being in a small village culture and surfing a bit and playing. And it was deeply nourishing. And I really watched the system slow down. I watched
yeah.
myself enter like a deeper listening, like you had said to this, like my guidance got more clear about, just what I want, where am I at, what's important to me. It thinned out. It was like a natural purification in a certain way.
Where were you in Solulita or
No,
where?
I was in Puerto Escondido, but I went north and went to a remote spot north there. We had to take a boat to get there. It's kind of a
Ooh,
private little
yeah.
sanctuary in a national park that's a small village
Oh,
culture. So it was really special.
yeah.
Yeah,
There are certain parts of Mexico where I've just experienced it's just so sacred.
yeah,
There's just some vortexes in there where it's really, and then to shut off completely like that, so necessary
so
and
good.
yeah, profound. I
Yeah,
love it. Well, it's been such a pleasure. I've been wanting to chat with you for a while. So thank you for coming on Quantum Heart Conversations. And our audience knows I'm going to link in the Instagram and your website. Any last words or?
well, thank you, Shannon. Pleasure to be with you and drop in this way. And thank you to your listeners for coming and taking some time to listen here. And yeah, look forward to more at some point, connecting in
Yeah.
person.
And when you're in San Francisco, I want to hang out.
Great. That sounds good.
All right, love. Well, for our audience, we're signing off. Pleasure to have everyone today. And I honor you, Shems. Thank you for
Thank you, Shannon.
everything.
Much
And
appreciated.
ciao for now.